Welcome explorers, my name is Katie and I work for the Woodland Trust. Today we're stepping into one of the most amazing habitats on earth, ancient woodlands. We're at the Woodland Trust Hinding Scout Wood, which is near Lancaster. Take a look around, notice the light coming through the leaves, the smell of damp earth, the quiet rustle of wildlife and birds. Now I want you to take a deep breath with me. What do you smell? Maybe fresh air, leaves, wildflowers. These woods are not just the trees. They're living, breathing ecosystems that have been growing and changing for hundreds, even thousands of years. Full of plants, animals and stories, this habitat has been growing here for centuries. That is before your great grandparents. In our session today, we will discover what makes them so special. Who lives here and why should we protect them? Are you ready to be forest rangers with me? Let's get started. Ancient woodlands are like nature's grandparents. They're wise, old and full of memories. They've been around for at least 400 years, with most of them existing for thousands and thousands of years to before even the Roman Empire. Imagine all the history that these trees have seen. So, what do you think would happen if people weren't here to take care of these woods? Yeah, you're right. Animals might lose their homes. Plants that are really rare and special could disappear and the land might dry out. This precious habitat could be destroyed over time if people don't help to look after it. What are some ways you think we might be able to protect ancient woods like this? One key way is to make sure you don't drop litter. Animals might eat it or get trapped inside. It's also really important that as humans we make sure to stay on paths. This is so we don't trample roots or squash special flowers like bluebells, which can take up to 7 years to grow back. We also help plant trees nearby, but not just any kind of tree. We plant the right trees that belong here. It's also important that we all listen to the forest. We need to learn about how everything connects together and how important the soil is beneath us too. So here is what caring for an ancient woodland might look like in action. Conservationists might work to manage the balance between trees, wildlife and plants. Volunteers will help to clear out invasive species that don't belong here and can upset the special communities. Local communities might run cleanups and tree planting events to increase biodiversity. And sometimes caring can simply be just learning, because understanding your space leads to respecting it. Even small actions matter. The forest here may be old, but they need young people like you to protect them. If you could shrink down and live somewhere in this forest, where would it be? Would you live high in the tree? Would you live under a log? Would you live inside an old tree? There's some great answers. I think my choice would definitely be in a little nook and cranny, staying dry in the rain. So you might wonder, how do we decide which woodlands are ancient? In England, Wales and Northern Ireland, a woodland is called ancient if it's been around since 600 AD. In Scotland, this is 750 AD. Those years were chosen because it is when the first accurate maps of the UK were drawn. Also, tree planting wasn't very common in the past. So, if a forest exists on historical map records, it's likely it grew naturally. So, before we look at map records, how else might we know a wood is ancient? Well, we look for clues. One clue is old trees, twisted and gnarly. They've been moulded by the wind and the rain. We also look for lots of dead wood and logs as the trees have started to die. This provides a really important habitat for mini beasts and fungi. You might also look for carpets of special plants like bluebells or wood anemones. These are really special plants that only grow in old forests. Moss, fungi and lichen on tree trunks is also a key sign of an ancient woodland. They show that the air is clean and the forest is peaceful and hasn't been disturbed. Finally, you might look for signs that humans have used the wood in the past. For example, old boundary banks or ditches. These are hints that people have managed the woods for hundreds of years, including people like farmers or even just local people looking for timber. Did you know that long ago, before the development of farming and cities as we know today, many people were travellers and they would travel around in small communities together, living in ancient woodlands? Ancient woods are like time machines. They show us what nature looked like long ago. Up to 75% of Britain was likely covered with these ancient woodlands back when humans lived as travellers. How old do you think this woodland is? This woodland is at least 400 years old, as is proven by map records and a lot of the special species you can find here. Now it's time for us to meet some of the wild residents of ancient woodlands. They're bursting with life, from the forest floor all the way up to the treetops. Tawny owls in the evening will be hooting from the trees and bats will swoop down through the night. They use old holes in the trees to nest and roost. Hedgehogs, foxes and badgers will all use the undergrowth for camouflage and shelter, snuffling through the fallen leaves to find food like worms. Moss, fungi and lichen will grow from the top to the bottom of the habitat, holding lots of water and storing carbon in the woodland. Red squirrels and pine martens dig holes in the soil, burying acorns ready for the winter, but they forget a few, and these ones will grow up to be the next oak trees in this forest. Under dead wooden logs, you'll find beetles, slugs and worms that are all busy recycling the leaves and dead wood into the soil. Everything here is connected. When one part of the forest changes, everything else feels it too. So what animals do you think you might find hiding under the leaves? Yep, you're right. You'll find things like hedgehogs, mini beasts like beetles, bees and worms, and you might even find some larger animals too, like pine martens or squirrels. So you might wonder, if these woods are so ancient, then why do they matter today? Well, here's why. They store carbon, helping us to fight against climate change. Did you know that ancient woodlands store more carbon than any other type of woodland too? Their roots also absorb the rain and their leaves catch water. This helps to slow down water flow and can prevent floods in our towns. The soil can hold water for a long period of time too, which helps plants grow if there's a dry spell. They also provide habitats for thousands of species, some species which can't survive anywhere else apart from ancient woodlands. And they give people a sense of peace. Spending time in nature is proven to reduce stress. They're an important part of our history and they hold on to secrets and memories from many of our ancestors. Sadly, these special places are disappearing. Less than 3% of Britain is now covered by ancient woodland. That means if you took a big map of Britain and you cut it up into 100 small squares, only 3 of those remaining squares would still be covered in woodland today. Once an ancient woodland is gone, the special species will not be coming back because they are so delicate and need a really specific habitat to live. So that's why protecting them isn't just about saving trees or planting more. It's about protecting our planet's history and future by caring for the ancient woodlands that we have. There are lots and lots of people working to protect our ancient woodlands, especially here at the Woodland Trust. So, why are fallen logs and dead woods so important for wildlife and ancient woodlands? Yes, you're right. They provide homes for mini beasts, lichen and fungi. They're part of the carbon cycle and help us in climate change. And it also allows the tree to be broken down into the soil, which gives the new trees nutrients to grow. Guess what? One day, you could work to protect them just like I do. You could be a site manager or an ecologist. These guys will look after nature in woodlands and help keep them safe for people and nature of the future to enjoy. You might want to become a wildlife ranger, caring for animals and habitats and working in the woods to help them thrive. Maybe you want to be a scientist, studying our forests, how they grow, and coming up with new methods to help organisations such as the Woodland Trust care for our ancient woodlands. Or maybe you like art or storytelling. Maybe you want to share the magic of ancient woodlands and nature with other people to inspire them to help the cause as well. Maybe you love speaking and you're quite passionate. You might want to be a campaigner. You can speak up and make sure that politicians, housing developers and woodland owners are protecting their ancient woodlands from threats like development, disease, pollution and mismanagement. And there's hundreds of other jobs too, but the final one we'll talk about today is community work, just like me. I communicate with local people to educate and help them visit their local woodlands. We also recruit volunteers who can help protect our ancient woodlands and keep the site safe for wildlife and people. What might happen for local people if these woods disappeared? We could lose loads of special wildlife and animals here. That would mean people might lose their special place to walk and find their happiness. We would also release a lot of carbon into the atmosphere, and this could be really bad for climate change and people all around the globe. Flooding might become more common too, and that could impact people in local towns. So let's think back. What have we learned today? We have learned what an ancient woodland is, including what makes this ancient woodland so special. We have learned about some of the animals and the plants that live here. We've learned why they're so important to our planet, for people and for wildlife, and why we must protect them. So, whether you're drawn to the science, the art, or the adventure, nature and the forest will always have a place for you. Ancient woodlands have stood for centuries, and with your help, they'll stand for centuries more for all people and animals to enjoy. So, how do ancient woods help people as well as wildlife? Great answers. They're very important for our well-being and peace. They've been shown to reduce stress and help us be more healthy. They're also really important for flood prevention, which can mean an ancient woodland like this helps a town that lives miles away down the road. It's really important that we maintain them and that we restore them so that we can have them for loads of future generations to come. If you would like to learn more about ancient woodlands, you can take part in the class activity, The Secret of Ancient Woodland, where you will map your own ancient woodland, adding in key features that you might find here, such as plants and animals, drawing trails for people to come enjoy the woods responsibly, and you could even plan some really fun posters or interpretive art pieces, such as a giant willow mushroom. Thank you for taking part, and you've given me some brilliant answers today. You guys seem to be really knowledgeable on ancient woodlands now. I'm going to be here in a minute to answer a few questions for you, so stick around.
Katie, are you back at all?
Hiya, yeah,
Good stuff. Got your breath
out of
back.
the rain.
Okay, we've got some questions come in for you. So let's have a look. Oh, there's an interesting one here as well, which I'll get to. First one though, what do you love most about your job?
Um, I like the fact that it's so dynamic and no 2 days are the same. When you're working with people and you're working outside in nature, like everything is changing with the seasons all the time. And I get to meet so many amazing people through community work. So yeah, it's a really varied role, and I don't think that I'm the sort of person who likes to do the same thing every day. So I enjoy that there's always new challenges.
Do you tend to find that's common with your colleagues as well? So people that generally don't like to have the same thing every day.
Yeah, definitely. I think, as I said, nature changes with the seasons. So no matter where you work in the nature sector, you're always going to be changing every few months. Um, Plus, just because of how nature works and the kind of restoration that you do, there's always new restoration projects that are coming along, or new things to try. So there's always going to be like a variety of activities to be getting on with in any role. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So the next one, yeah, I'd be interested to know this because obviously, so my daughter thinks that £20,000 is an awful lot of money, but when you're 11, it's hard to understand sometimes exactly what money means. So this question is, does your job pay well?
Yeah, I think anything in the nature sector, or in the charity sector in general, to be fair, you won't get paid as much as if you're in the for-profit sector. And that's just the nature of the work, I guess, when you work with a charity. But I live a happy life and I make enough to live comfortably. Um, but if you're chasing after, big money, then I'm not sure the charity sector is for you. I would say though, in comparison to some of my friends, they earn better salaries than me, but I think that I have a nicer work-life balance sometimes, and I seem to enjoy my job more. It doesn't seem to stress me out as much as some of my friends. So it's definitely just deciding what you want to prioritize, and you can, yeah, live a happy life, definitely, working in this sector.
Excellent. So yeah, putting a value on happiness as well, I guess, is what you're covering. Okay, so what's your favourite animal that lives in ancient woodlands?
I love badgers. Yeah, I think they're so interesting because you don't really tend to see them and they kind of seem quite magical. But I got taken out by a local badger group to go and watch a set of badgers. And yeah, it's just so interesting to see them and think that, they're bigger than a cat, but they just live underground for all of the day. So, you could be walking through a woods and beneath your feet there might be a sleeping badger. And you wouldn't really even know until sunset. If you sat and waited, you might see it come out.
That's a really good point. So, despite working in the sector for, well, unfortunately, 24 years now, I've never seen a live badger in the UK. So, what are your best tips for seeing badgers or signs
You
of them?
Yeah, I think the best tip is they are quite secretive, and there are some threats against them. So people who go and watch badgers and things like that won't necessarily tell you where they are. But what you can do is go out with local badger groups to go and watch them. So if you are really interested in badgers and you would like to see one, then yeah, get in touch with your local badger group and they'll take you out. Usually you have to go out at sunset, so it can be quite late in the day, and you wrap up warm and you have to sit very still and very quiet because they are quite jumpy creatures. They're very shy.
Probably why I've never seen one. I struggle to sit still and quiet. Okay, so next one, there's lots of really good questions coming in. So, what qualifications do you need to work for the Woodland Trust?
Well, it's an interesting one actually because between me and my colleagues, quite a few of us have different things. So, one of my colleagues actually moved into the nature sector from studying drama. She worked in different plays and productions, and because she had those skills with people and with community work, she then came to the Woodland Trust to do that. Um, I went a quite a traditional route. I studied the sciences and studied biology. And I think I thought originally when I was younger that I wanted to work outdoors, maybe work more like a ranger or like working on the land. So like actually doing the practical work. But actually now I'm a bit older, and I've come into this role, I really enjoy it and I just didn't realize that it existed. Um, yeah, there's all kind of ways to get in really. It's just thinking about the different skills that you have already and how you might use those to find a job in the green sector. There's a whole variety, as I'm sure you'll see the rest of this week, of different roles you can get into.
So, where do skills in drama help?
I think, she was really good at delivering to the community. So she's really an engaging person. She had experience running events before, for example, and she also had already built up quite a bit of knowledge about nature in her spare time because she is really passionate about wildlife anyway. So although she didn't have a formal qualification, actually by having hobbies or if you like to go out on walks with your family, then that can be just as great an experience and you can be just as connected with nature as if you'd done a full degree. Especially for roles that tend to be more based around community engagement rather than actually having to work, directly as an ecologist or something.
That's really cool. So, you've got a team with loads of different people with loads of different skills, bringing lots of different, yeah, yeah, critical
Definitely.
skills to what you do. Okay. Do you ever find your job tricky? And if so, why?
Yeah, it can be hard in the nature sector specifically because it's not it's hard to reach out for funding. So because we're a charity, we are limited on the money that we get given to do projects and things like that. So sometimes it can be tricky to find the right people who would like to give you money. It can also be tricky to decide where you want to spend it because we all have so many great ideas and there's lots of people who'd like to work with us. So sometimes we've really got to think about what is what is the best way to proceed with events and things like that. It can be a little bit hard, like I said before, as well, because there's so much going on. So often you have to be able to multitask and you have to be able to prioritize what you're working on. And especially when it's in winter, it can sometimes mean going out in the rain, like I'm sure you just saw then. So I would say they're probably the hardest bits for me.
That makes sense. I don't. One thing I don't miss is the rain too much. Okay. Oh, do you know what the oldest wood in the UK is?
Gosh, I don't think we would know an actual age, to be honest, because like I sort of said in the before, they can be thousands and thousands of years old. There are a few which are really notable that people really love. One thing I didn't mention is that we have temperate rainforests here in England and the UK. So temperate rainforests are usually ancient woodlands and they have really high rainfall, and this leads to a really beautiful landscape. So I know there is one called Wistman's Wood, which is in Devon, and that one is kind of highly regarded as being one of the best examples of what a temperate rainforest ancient woodland would look like. But a little bit closer to home, where I work at the Smithers Estate, we have ancient woodlands on site, which again, we can't track exactly how old they are, but likely thousands of years old.
So one of the problems with telling the ages of trees right is that you need to sometimes see the inside of them to find that out. And
Yeah.
you don't really want to go chopping yours down to count the rings, right?
No, no. So yeah, with ancient trees, you can kind of make guesses sometimes, very similar to how you would in an ancient wood, by measuring the trees and seeing how big they are. And then you can also look at the trees for features of aging. So trees actually age very similar to people. They get wrinkly, they get warty, they shrink like grandmas when they go smaller over time, start stooping. So there are also really interesting ways to figure it out for trees as well as woods.
That's so cool. Okay, so the next one is I guess, yeah. So do you ever or have you ever been to different woodlands around the world?
Yeah, I have visited a few. I visited a really interesting one last year actually, when I went to Tenerife. And I found it really interesting because they have really large pine forests there. And because it's a volcanic island, so sometimes it still has small eruptions, but it's been built from an underground volcano. They often have wildfires. So their pine trees are really well adapted to withstand fire. So you would think that a fire would just destroy a whole woodland, but their woodlands actually can set on fire and then heal. And the trees will grow layer after layer of bark. And the idea is that if there's a fire, it will burn away one or two layers of bark, but those other 10 inside will protect the main part of the tree so it can continue living. So yeah, there's loads of really interesting woodlands abroad. Anything really in Europe is probably quite similar to what we have in the UK as well. Although obviously they will have evolved over time. A lot of those are quite broadleaf uh, forests, which is just like we have in England. So they can be quite similar if you're trying to imagine maybe what the woods were like in England, 1,000 years ago.
That's really cool. And plus a few of them have wolves and bears, right? In Europe still.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Some of the bigger species that we no longer have, like bears, beavers, werewolves, lynx, even, we think. So there's all these kinds of species that still, especially in places like Spain, will be thriving, like they would have here before humans settled on the island.
So a couple of questions that all focus around the same thing, which is how long have you done this job for?
I've been in this job for 2 years now. Previously, I worked in all different kinds of roles. So sometimes people think that you have to know straight away after school or after university what you want to do. And although I always did want to work in a green role, I did take about 5 years of doing other bits and bobs as well. Just having a fun time, really. I wasn't, really ready to be completely set in a career yet. So I worked in other things and in all of those different jobs, I built different skills that then when I applied to this role, I was like ready to go and really skilled already. So yeah, it's been a great 2 years. I've had a great time, and I hope that I'll be in similar roles to this for years to come.
I love that message that you don't have to know what you want to do immediately after leaving school. I think there's so many people that don't, and that's okay. Okay, I love this question. How do you identify the type and species of different animals in the forest?
Wow, I guess there's loads of different ways, really. You might look at paw prints in the mud. That's quite a classic way. Um, you might look for, with badgers, they look for hair often. So you'll be able to find they've got quite coarse hair, which just means that their hair is really quite hard and thick. And you'll be able to find that all around where they live because, like your dog in your house, their hair will just shed. There's also poo. People will look at animal poo, smell animal poo. I don't really get involved in that, but but people can, and from that you can tell what kind of animals are getting about. Um, there's also finally a very scientific way that we're trying at the moment where I work, which is called eDNA sampling. And this is when you can take samples of water or bits of dirt, send them off to a lab, and they will test it for the DNA inside that. And from the DNA, they can tell you what kinds of animals are living in your woodland, which is really clever.
That's so cool. And that just shows where we're going to need people with different skills in the future, right? So lab work instead of perhaps going outside and smelling poo. If anybody does want to go outside and smell poo in their own time, there are guides that you can download from sites like the Field Studies Council. So you can do
Yeah.
that right now if you fancy it. Um, okay, so the next one would be, oh, I like this one. So we got a couple left, really. What's it like to work in the woodland?
I love being able to work in the woodlands. For me, I find them a really calm place, and often when I'm working in the office, I'm not really thinking about how lucky I am to have this job because I'm just cracking on and doing my work. But especially every time I'm in the woods with different people, different community groups, or even just having a walk on my own, for me, it's really peaceful and mindful. And they're always the times that I just think how lucky I am to work in a role like this.
Amazing. The Woodland Trust is equally lucky to have you and people like you as well. So, all right, well, unless there's any more. Oh, no, there's a few more that's come through. Well, what types of tree do you see? So, I guess for ancient woodland, what types of tree might you have?
Yeah, I mean, loads of different types, really. A lot of it is dependent on where in the country you live and the history of the woods. So I'll talk a little bit about Smithles. We're a site that are quite high up from sea level. So we're very, very windy. And because we're near Manchester, we're also very wet, lots of rain. So traditionally, in any kind of ancient woodland, you will have a lot of oaks, English oaks, because it's a classic tree, isn't it? All across England, probably one of the most numerous that we have. And you'll also see lots of other trees like rowans in our site. They're called mountain ash is another name for them. So they quite like to live high up, like where we are. We also get a lot of willow. Willows really like wet places and damp places. And finally, we get a lot of alder trees too. There's lots and lots of other species I'm sure that we get to. Um, Something that's really interesting about our site specifically is that we have a lot of beech trees. And it's not beach like where you swim, it's beach like Beech. And these trees, actually, a lot of them were planted around our estate because the owner from the Tudor times really liked beech trees and thought they were very beautiful. He also used their timber quite a lot because they grow very fast, they burn well, and you can also carve them quite well as well. So he really liked them, and basically, he planted a bunch everywhere. Um, and we're now doing something called ancient woodland restoration here, where we're taking out those trees because there's actually just too many of the beech trees around for the other trees that are really special here, like rowans and oaks, to thrive in the way they should. So, there's lots of species, for example, of beech that you might not see very many of in other ancient woodlands, but for us, we have a lot of them.
That's really interesting. And you pulled a bit up there. So, a subject that students might study is history, right? And how important
Yeah.
knowing the history of a site can be for how you manage it from now on.
Yeah, definitely. We have some ancient trees on our site in our ancient woodland, which are older trees, and they're older coppices. And what a coppice is when a tree has its limbs cut off on a regular basis, and it means the tree grows in a really specific way. And they're really interesting for us because the older coppices were quite clearly cut by local people for firewood or for other uses of the timber too. So it's really cool to go and see them and know the history. Yeah, that local people, probably 100 years plus ago, were coming to this specific one area where there's about five or six of them left to cut down timber to take home.
That's amazing. It just shows how, again, different subjects can come in to be used by, the sector now.
Yeah.
Okay, great question. What's the most unusual creature you've seen?
Oh wow. Maybe a badger, I would say. Like you said, I think not many people get to see them. Also bats. So bats are really quite easy to see. I would definitely have a look for local bat walks. They're quite specifically the ones called pipistrelles are very common in England, and I think all across Wales and Scotland too. And as long as you're out when it's dark, you can quite reliably see them near woodlands. So I would have a look for those. As I say, it's not unusual in the way that there's not many of them, but it's unusual because you don't tend to be in the woods when it's dark to see them. So they're a good one to go and have a look for.
Amazing. I love that. Similarly, and I guess here you can pull on your holidays if you wanted to, but what's the most dangerous animal?
Oh, this is an interesting story actually. So, I lived in South Africa for 6 months, and I was doing some science work over there. We were watching animals called mole rats, which are very interesting. If anybody would like to have a Google of them, they look very, very weird. I will warn you. And when I was there, I was walking around with my friends, and we actually came face to face with a Cape Cobra. And the Cape Cobras are very dangerous snakes, very, very large snakes. If it had bit us, we likely would have died. So, like, that is definitely the most dangerous I've seen close up. And we all just walked away very slowly and waited 5 minutes and it slithered away. So, often you've just got to remember with animals like that he was probably more scared of us than we were of him. Um, but it can be quite shocking. I've not seen much in England that has been super dangerous before. We tend to be, I guess, lucky in that regard. But yeah, definitely when you go abroad, it's one to make sure you're aware of.
Bit of advice there might help somebody out in the
Yeah.
future. Okay, and unless any more come in, I'm going to end on this one because it's a good one to end on. But for anybody that's looking to get into a role like yours now, where can you find vacancies?
So one place that I used to go on, I think is it conservationjobs.co.uk. You might,
Countryside Job Service? Or
yes, maybe that
Conservation
one as
Jobs is
well.
one as well, yeah.
Yeah, there's a few online that are like that, um, and they will usually post. I know that Green Jobs for Nature will also have resources on their website about where you can go and look. Um, in general, if there's one specific type of like wildlife that you enjoy the most, I maybe would sign up to that specific charity's um, notices for jobs. So, if you're really interested in woodlands, you might sign up to the Woodland Trust. If you really like wildlife more broadly, you might sign up to your local wildlife trust to get some notifications from them. Um, but I wouldn't forget as well to also be looking further afield, maybe at ecologist jobs. Some of those companies aren't charities; they're companies who would do work. So you might find them in other places, and then local councils too, and things like that. It's really wide ranging, to be honest, which is why it's quite nice to have some of the websites like Countryside Jobs and Green Jobs for Nature that can pull them all together.
Amazing. Yeah, some great websites there for sure. And if your school are running a careers event as well, don't forget to reach out to any of those places that Katie mentioned, like the Wildlife Trusts, the local council. See if they've got anybody who works in those positions that would be willing to come in and talk to you as well. I'm sure there would be in many places. Well, thank you, firstly, for all of your questions and your engagement. Some really good answers here. So really impressed with that. And then mainly, obviously, to Katie as well for taking the time, both in the woods and then to run back to her, hopefully a bit warmer office this morning. But yeah, just thank you, Katie. Anything you want to leave us with?
Yeah, no, thank you everyone for learning about woods with me, and I just hope that you love them as much as I do. Um, yeah, have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Amazing. Thanks, Katie. And for anybody who wants to join us in the next session, which is about inspiring people into the future in careers in environmental education, that will be happening at 1:15. But for now, just thank you to you all and thank you for Katie.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
See you
Thanks,
later,
all.
everyone. Bye.